Best known for his black and white photographs depicting nude models, Robert Mapplethorpe stirred up controversy in his time, sparking debate in the United States over the use of public funds for what some considered obscene artwork, as well as challenging the limits of free speech as protected by the U.S. Constitution. In fact, when the subject of Mapplethorpe comes up, it's hard to think of anything else besides the oft-used images pushed out by the media as an example of his divisive work. The infamous bullwhip image and brachioproctic image are, of course, two of the most infamous of his work. But Mapplethorpe was obsessed with perfection and did so much more than just subversive photography. He was also known for his portraits of flowers, celebrities, and self-portraits, always taking close consideration of the details and composition. Though a select batch of his work was certainly contentious, the only other thing that could compare to his controversial output was how he died. The reality of his imminent death to AIDS, of course, made its mark and appearance in his work. And no other portrait sums up his life, oncoming demise, and style than one of the very last self-portraits he'd ever record, the Death's Head Cane self-portrait, simply titled Self-Portrait. The photo was taken in 1988 in New York, just a year before his death at the age of 42. In fact, there were 3 self-portraits taken at this time as a way of presenting himself to the public for the last time. He has said it was a way of visually acknowledging that he is dead and he is going to die. He has come to the reality of this and forces the spectator to recognize it alongside himself. In fact, while preparing for the shoot, he had intended to just take a shot of his skull-ornamented walking cane. However, he decided to put on a black turtleneck shirt and be a part of the image. The shot was taken by his brother, Edward, also a photographer, who was going by the name Edward Maxey. Robert objected to his brother using the name Mapplethorpe because he didn't want the name to exist side by side with different bodies of work and style. Brian English, Robert's studio assistant, helped with the shoot. What we see is an image of the death's head skull in focus while the face of Robert falls into blur. His brother intuitively knew what Robert was going for with this particular shot and placed the focus on the skull rather than Robert's face. In a way, it represents a transition, how Robert was fading away while death becomes more prevalent. With the black turtleneck shirt, Mapplethorpe purposefully attempts to erase his body already on the path of decay as he blends into the background. Robert Mapplethorpe emerged as an artist in the 1970s. This was a time of punk rock and the rise of gay culture. Originally, Mapplethorpe had trained as a painter and sculptor, majoring in graphic arts at the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. But he eventually gravitated to photography, starting off with a simple Polaroid camera. Sculpture, however, would still play a part in his style, as he would often photograph models, particularly bodybuilders, in sculpted poses. While living with Patti Smith, his girlfriend at the time, a lifelong friend who had supported him early on by working in a bookstore, he'd meet up with art curator Sam Wagstaff, who would become his mentor, lover, and longtime companion. It was through Wagstaff that Mapplethorpe was able to acquire his medium-format Hasselblad camera. This resulted in an array of images and exhibitions featuring his erotic male and female nudes, still lives of flowers, and celebrity portraits. Through his career, he would continue to explore erotic and explicit themes. His subject matter made his work controversial and the point of debate on public funding of art and free speech through the 1980s. One of his traveling solo exhibitions, The Perfect Moment, brought national attention to the issues of public funding of the arts. The exhibit included photos of Europhasia, hardcore BDSM, the now infamous bullwhip picture, and even a few photos of exposed children. One of the shows was curated via a grant awarded by the National Endowment for the Arts. The host gallery was pulled into the fray, while many religious organizations vocally opposed government support for what they considered a sensational presentation of potentially obscene material. The following year, another art gallery in Cincinnati was charged with obscenity for exhibiting the material. The museum and its director were, however, found not guilty by a jury. These wouldn't be the only cases of controversy and legal wranglings that would follow Mapplethorpe until even after his death. Subversive topics aside, portraiture was an important part of Mapplethorpe's body of work. In fact, his most photographed subject was himself. Mapplethorpe considered personality to be serial. He appeared in photos with devil horns, dressed in drag, and in front of an inverted pentagram while holding a gun, to name a few. Though he often appeared to be playing a role, it was in the last several self-portraits in 1988 which he appeared as himself. It's an intimate portrayal compared to his past depictions. The effects of his illness have visibly taken its toll. He appears gaunt, weak, and fading away. The black clothing set against the black background gives an impression of a floating head, the body erased. Though the skull is the main focus, the image is titled Self-Portrait. The cane itself carries significance, not just the skull. It addresses his physical weakness. It's not a depiction of a healthy man holding a skull. The walking cane is necessary for him to carry on with what remains. The skull is a reminder of death, a memento mori. The cane is a symbol of his illness and ongoing struggle. As the 80s came to a close, there was still a lot of misunderstanding towards AIDS and the gay community in general. Many in the public believed those with the illness were responsible for their condition, and sympathy was severely lacking. The self-portrait and cane photo brings forth questions of physical death, addresses the eradication of the body, and can be seen as an application to the wider context of the AIDS epidemic and its treatment. Throughout his career, Mapplethorpe obsessed over beauty, the pursuit of beauty and perfection. To him, flowers represented extensive metaphors for sexual organs and an endless search for the perfection in form. But in these final self-portraits, Mapplethorpe does away with the sexual undertones. He returns to the still life, combines his prior love of sculpture, relies on conventional aesthetic, and addresses the horrible circumstances of his final days on Earth.